Hello, welcome back to my channel. And welcome to the 12th episode of Taste Test, wherein I test other booktubers' taste in books to see how our tastes align. In today's video, I'm going to be taste testing Rachel from Raven-Haired-Reader. I am so excited to be doing this. Rachel is fairly new, I would say, to booktube, just like in the grand scheme of things. I have been enamored with her videos ever since she started uploading. It seems like anytime she talks about books, I'm tempted to pick them up, even if our genre preferences don't necessarily always align. I feel like Rachel tends to read a lot more fantasy than I do, but she does pick up a fair amount of romance as well. So this video is going to be super interesting and I'm really excited to see how our tastes align, again, because I have been watching her videos and I'm always tempted to pick up the things that she talks about, and that's why I hit her up and was like, hey, can I read your favorites? Because I gotta see if your tastes are similar to my taste, because I just love how you talk about books. So that's what we're gonna be doing here in this video today. Let me quickly run you through the 5 books that I'm going to be reading. I'm not gonna give you any like long drawn out synopses because we're gonna be talking about what these books are about as we read them, but let me at least tell you what the titles of the books that we're going to be reading are. First up, we have The Song of the Marked by S.M. Gaither. This is one of the books actually that made me want to do this video in the first place. It is a fantasy romance that I'd never heard of before, but I remember watching Rachel talk about this in a vlog and I was like, okay, well, I have to pick this up. Obviously, if she enjoys it, like, there's a pretty high chance I will. I know she really likes Sarah J. Maas books, so I'm wondering if this is going to be similar to a Sarah J. Maas book. I have heard that there is sort of like a band of friends in this story, and that's something that I tend to kind of like to read when I'm reading a fantasy romance, so I'm very excited to give this one a try, and it is available on KU, which is obviously a perk. Next up, we have Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This one I'm really excited to give a try. It's one that's been on my radar for forever. I feel like everyone and their mother has read this book. I think it's like kind of a thriller, kind of like a romantic suspense novel, and it is obviously an older book. I did notice that whenever Rachel handed me her list of favorites, there were quite a few older books on there for me to choose from. I think Dorian Gray was also on there as well. I wanted to give myself, I would say, like the best shot at liking the books on Rachel's list, so I picked ones that I thought I would be more likely to enjoy, so that's why I picked up this one. I am excited to give it a go, finally get in the loop about what the story is about. I know there was like a movie recently as well, so excited to give this one a try. Next up, we have A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This one I don't know that much about. I think it's like some sort of Dracula reimagining, retelling. I think it's told from the point of view of one of Dracula's brides, and I have heard it's like sapphic, so very excited to give this one a try. Next, we have one I would say that I'm pretty tentative about going into, but I picked it up because I figured it would be easy to read. I don't know why, but I chose Yolk by Mary H.K. Choi. This is a YA contemporary novel, and it's about sisters, and that's literally all I know. I've had kind of mixed luck with Mary H.K. Choi in the past, but I am willing to pick this one up because it does have a sister relationship, and I do have a sister of my own, so I'm wondering if this is going to be like relatable in some way. And then lastly, the book that I'm sure you clicked on this video for, Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. This is a book that's getting so much buzz, and I think that is definitely due in part to Rachel and some of Rachel's friends over on Instagram. I feel like I see pictures of this book, oh god, daily at this point, because everyone seems to be really into it. It's kind of like Gossip Girl set in London is what I've heard. I am very excited and interested to give this one a go and see if I end up enjoying it, because I've heard mixed things, and I don't know, it seems like an angsty story that I may or may not like. Angst kind of goes one of two ways for me, so definitely excited to give this one a try. But before we get into the taste test, I'd like to take a chance to tell you a little bit about the sponsor of today's video, Wondershare Filmora 11. Wondershare Filmora is an easy-to-use video editing software with powerful skills to help your videos shine. Filmora has all of the features you want in editing software, from built-in templates like texts and overlays to AI-powered speech to text that can help you add subtitles to your videos. The 2 features that I love the most are the title editing function and the color match feature. You'll know I like to keep the editing in my videos pretty simple, but Filmora's title editing functionality is so easy to use with its built-in text overlays. You can customize the font, animation, color, and even more settings with ease. I'm really excited to see how this feature can bring even more life to my weekly reading vlogs. I also love that with Filmora, I'm able to efficiently match the colors across all the clips for my videos. Nothing bugs me more than when I have to stop recording mid-film, and then when I press record again, the color of the clips doesn't quite line up. With Filmora, I'm able to get a really consistent look with very little effort. Wondershare Filmora 11 is free to try and is definitely worth a download, especially considering that it's less expensive than other leading video editing software. Click the link in my description to check out the amazing features and start editing today. Thank you to Wondershare for sponsoring this video. Now let's go ahead and get into the vlog portion of the video. Alright, so we have some books to talk about. I finished Yolk by Mary H.K. Choi last night. This is a book that I didn't update you at the 50% mark for because I wasn't really sure how I felt about it. I didn't want to give some vague explanation of what the book's about and just tell you, I don't know know how I feel. Now that I'm finished with the book, I definitely have firm feelings, and I feel like more completely tell you what the story is about. So I think at the core, this book is about a sister relationship between young adults or women on the kind of like cusp of full adulthood, women who have graduated or will soon graduate from university, and kind of the relationship that they have with each other. So this book is about June and Jane. June is the older sister, Jane is the younger one, and the book is told from the point of view of Jane, and she gets kind of back into contact with her older sister. They've kind of been out of like true contact for a couple of years. Get back in contact because June unfortunately has endometrial cancer or uterine cancer. Essentially, she's going to have her uterus and fallopian tubes completely removed. Kind of needs her sister's help, and I don't really want to say what her sister's help will include because that would be spoiling the book, but they come into contact because of like a medical, issue that June is facing, and Jane has to kind of grapple with this sort of weird relationship she has with her sister, and also the weird relationship she has with herself and her mother. Right off the bat, I wasn't sure how to feel about this book because I felt like the prose was really impressive, but this didn't really feel like a young adult story for me, and I feel like I had different expectations going into this book than were delivered. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, I just feel like this story didn't really in any way feel like a young adult book, despite the kind of ages of the characters being sort of YA-ish. I want to say that June is like 23 and Jane is like 19 or 20 or something like that. The way that the book is told definitely reads very literary fiction, and I kind of wish that this had been placed in the literary fiction kind of space because I feel like the reception of the story would be a lot different than the reviews are on Goodreads. I feel like a lot of the reviews on Goodreads are kind of negative about this book, and I think a lot of that could be chalked up to kind of the age demographic this book is targeting. I was feeling weird about this book, not really feeling like it was in the right age demographic, and then also I feel like I didn't really know the direction the story was going. It kind of meanders a bit. It definitely focuses more on the relationships than anything else. There's really no point, I guess you could say, to this book. The book ends with the medical procedure happening, and that's it. Like, that is the end of the book. There are relationships and kind of romantic things that happen throughout the story as well that never really fully get resolved. So I feel like if I had updated you at the 50% mark, like, what would I have said? I don't know what's happening with the story. I mean, to be honest, even having finished the story, I don't really know that I know what's going on with it. But I did feel like this was a pretty good exploration of familial relationships and culture. Different cultures, I guess, like conceptualize family and what family means. It was interesting hearing June and Jane's parents kind of like talk about their relationships with family and with the idea of family. Her dad basically says like, you know what, it's like the one family you've got, and even though, a sister relationship is hard to deal with, it's nice to have someone there for you. And I think that's kind of like the resounding message here. It's like, even though sometimes family can be challenging, it's kind of nice to know that there's someone that has your back. Even if y'all are not willing to like really say I love you, it's nice knowing someone is there. I don't know if that's a message that will necessarily work for everyone, given that some of the things that happen between the siblings and also just between the family in general are a little bit like rough. I think you have to obviously make that decision for yourself in your own relationships. Like, if you want to carry on a relationship that could be potentially like toxic, even if it is your family. But I don't even know what to say beyond that. I just feel like this is a really interesting look at family and relationships. I do feel like some of the things that were said were kind of profound. I felt myself pondering the relationship between June and Jane, considering some things. I will say my relationship with my sister could not be more different than the relationship that is displayed in this book, so it wasn't something that was really relatable in a way, but I do feel like this felt like an authentic representation, I guess you could say, of like the sister relationship. How sometimes that can be tricky, and also how your interpretation, I guess, of family can be so different. I think that was maybe the most interesting thing to me, was how June and Jane, like, they had similar upbringings, but they also kind of reflected their upbringings differently in the way that they present to the world and in the ways in which they either want to kind of perform to the world or not, and how that affects their relationship. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I thought this was a really solid book. I mean, this is like a 3-star read. This is not one that like, really stuck with me. I feel like I wanted there to be more of a point. I wanted there to be more of a concrete ending to the story. It didn't need to be like some grand happy ending, but I feel like there were just a few too many loose ends kind of left at the end of the book. But I can definitely see how Rachel could enjoy this story, because this feels like a Rachel book, if that makes sense. I'm 50% into another book, and spoiler alert, I actually read the 3rd book for this video first. So I feel like I'm kind of getting an understanding of Rachel's taste and the kinds of books that she tends to gravitate towards. And they seem to be books that do kind of have pretty writing, a slightly more profound approach to storytelling, books that are deeply emotional, I would say. It seems even the fantasies that I know that she likes seem to have kind of an emotional kind of bend to them. Not in terms of like sappy emotion, but really getting you to dig deep, I guess. Overall, this is a 3-star. Like, it wasn't my favorite thing that I've ever read, but I don't think I would have picked this up had it not been for this video, even though I'd heard a lot of different things about this book. And I'm definitely glad that I read this book. I think it was interesting. And I will say, if you enjoy New York City, or you just like reading about the city in general, I feel like this was a really good look at what people actually like about the city and kind of what it's all about. Not a romanticized version, but just like what it actually is, and I liked that. So the next book that I'm like 50% into is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This book, wow, it's an epistolary novel, and it is told from the lens of one of the brides of Dracula. For reference, I have never read any books related to Dracula. I've never read Dracula. I don't know anything really about the story except for he is a vampire, and that's about it. That's pretty much all I know. So I didn't really know if I would connect with this book going into it, and I also had heard like, just mixed things about this. I feel like the majority of people I know like this, but I don't know. I just didn't know what to expect. And I'm actually very much enjoying this, even more so than Yolk. And I'm definitely, again, kind of like picking up on Rachel's taste as I continue to read. So this book is told, again, from the point of view of one of Dracula's brides. I think her name is like Constanta or something, and it sounds like Constanza in the audiobook, but it's two T's. Maybe I'm pronouncing it correctly. I don't know. Constanta. She, at the beginning of the story, is saved by Dracula. She is his war bride. I guess she is someone who almost died at the hands of invading forces. She is found like on a battlefield, and Dracula saves her and makes her the first of his brides. So she has an interesting relationship with him at the beginning. She realizes that he is definitely not best husband ever, not the best husband material. He is definitely a complex individual who definitely likes to get his way, but she also has this kind of inexplicable pull towards him. Maybe not inexplicable, because it makes sense, like he saved her, she would be, kind of beholden to him. The beginning of the story is really her kind of describing the relationship she has with him, and then I think the story as it goes on is going to be describing how she feels about the other people being brought into their marriage. We've already met Magdalena, I want to say, is the first of Dracula's other brides, and Constanta at the start is kind of irritated that Dracula would be taking another bride, but she's also very, very interested in this person and interested in her like in a sexual way. So it's definitely a polyamorous like LGBT story, which I appreciate. I haven't gotten super far into their relationship yet. I just know that Constanta and the girl Magdalena are gonna like make out soon. I don't know. I think they're like out and about, just the two of them, after a couple of years, and they are kind of going to like deepen their own relationship kind of outside of their relationship with Dracula. And I think that's going to be like the basis of maybe Constanta trying to get out of this relationship. I think at the beginning of the story we find out that like she's already killed him, so clearly she has some issues with him, but curious to see kind of where that goes. Really enjoying the way the story is written. It is very descriptive, and I feel like the emotions are very palpable. I'm not really someone who tends to like fairy flowery writing. I'm okay with some description, obviously, but I don't want anything that just feels like purple prose. But it really feels like the author is able to use her prose to articulate the emotions of Constanta in a way that is really connecting. And I think oftentimes, even when an author attempts to make something pretty, they're still not necessarily able to accomplish what they're setting out to accomplish. I really feel that way about the next book that we're going to talk about. I just feel like there's a difference between attempting to make something pretty and then actually accomplishing, getting your point across with that pretty language usage. And I just feel like someone's kind of doing the damn thing. I'm very pleasantly surprised. I'm very much enjoying this book, and I could definitely see this being a 4 or 5 star, even though I didn't expect to like this, even though this is not like a traditional romance. Is it a romance? I don't know what we're calling this book, but it's entertaining and actually is making me interested in the story of Dracula. So like, who would have thunk? Who would have thought? I don't know. I'm enjoying it. I'm going to continue reading. I only have like, again, 50% of this book left, which is only like an hour via audio, which we love. And I'll update you tomorrow with my final thoughts and feelings when my AC is not loud and blasting behind me. So as I'm editing this video, I realized I never did a final clip for A Dowry of Blood. I distinctly remember filming one, but for some reason I can't find it. Maybe I accidentally deleted it, not really sure. But I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed this. The writing was just impeccable. I feel like it's really a testament to this author's writing that I enjoyed this book, because the subject matter at hand and the fact that I knew nothing about Dracula definitely made me think that I wouldn't enjoy this book, but it was a total winner. Now, the only reason I didn't give this book 5 stars was because I didn't totally love when Alexei came into the story. I just kind of took my enjoyment down a bit, and I guess that makes sense given that that's kind of when things start to unfold in the lives of Constanta and Magdalena as well. But other than that, I just really liked this book. One of those like go girl moments. Like, I was just very excited for all 3 of the wives to be able to get out of the situation, to have their own autonomy, and to really decide what they're doing for themselves. I'd be lying if I said that the ending was like perfect for me. I did kind of want to see it go in a slightly different direction. However, again, it was really cool getting to see these people, vampires, I guess, like be in charge of their lives and their own destinies and not have to be beholden to their creator, I guess. It's like, I don't even know what to say about this book to really get you to pick it up, because it is such a strange one. But I feel like if it appeals at all to you, if you want something kind of like spooky and creepy with some commentary February to it. I feel like this is a really good book to pick up in the fall, and I had a really good time with it. Like, I would not have picked this up on my own for sure, but I'm really glad that I picked it up for this taste test, and again, it's a 4-star read for me. So that is all I have to say about this book. Let's go ahead and get into Magnolia Parks, the moment we've all been waiting for. I am 200 pages into Magnolia Parks. I'm actually filming this clip before any of these other clips, if you want to know how the movie magic happens. Yes, I was going to put this one in the middle of the video so you would watch my opinions on these other books. Probably skipped around anyway, but Magnolia Parks. Obviously, I'm reading this because it's a book that Rachel really likes. It might be Rachel's new all-time favorite book. She specifically messaged me and said, read this. And so I am reading it. I have thoughts and feelings. I certainly do. If you like Sally Rooney, more power to you. This is Sally Rooney drank a couple of glasses of champagne and decided to pretend like she was Gossip Girl. That's what this book is, okay? So this book follows Magnolia Parks. She is a British socialite, and she is in an off-again, on-again relationship with a man named BJ Ballantyne, and he's so cool, and she's so cool. She is, I would say, pretty similar to like a Blair character, perhaps a little less uptight, but I don't even know if I would say that. She has a lot of opinions. She is slightly unlikable, but somehow BJ thinks that the sun shines out of her ass. He has gotten no fewer than 20 tattoos dedicated all to her. He is just enamored with her. He absolutely loves her, but not enough to not cheat on her. So this story kind of follows them after the fallout of their breakup. They date other people, they sleep with other people, they wind up in each other's beds but not sleeping together. It also follows the exploits of their friend group who you were introduced to in the beginning of the book, and you're kind of like, who the fuck are all of these people? They're mostly men, and I am not going to keep any of their names straight. My issue, I have many. My first one is that the writing of this book, oh my god, it's not Sally Rooney writing. There are quotation marks, thank the Lord. However, the way that these sentences are strung together is absolutely insane. I'm trying to find the one sentence that I had to read about 6 times. It's in the first chapter of the book, and the first chapter of the book really throws you because you start it up and you're like, wow, wasn't expecting this. It's not that it's terrible, and once you get immersed in the story, the writing kind of fades into the background, which I appreciate, but getting into this book is inexplicably challenging. I would highly recommend reading the sample of the first chapter before, I don't know, spending $20-ish on the physical copy of the book. Now, lucky me, Hayden has a lot of Amazon gift cards lying around. That's why I have the physical copy of this book. I wouldn't spend money on a book that I've never read before at this stage in my life. So the writing aside, the idea of it, right? I like the idea of a will they, won't they, angsty pining relationship. My issue though is that I like people who use their words. I like people who communicate. At my big age, I need people to talk with their mouths and words and communicate. I like my angst and pining to be built on a reason, and I understand that what BJ did is perhaps warranting some of the behavior on the part of Parks. However, if they would just talk, admit their feelings for each other, and move on, oh my god, this book would probably be done within the first 100 pages, right? That's not the case. Instead, we have them pining for each other, but it's not like it's an unbelievable pining or angst. It's just something that I'm like, okay, like, I know y'all want to fuck, so why don't you just fuck? I like my angst and tension to be built on something like, oh, I don't know, you want to have sex with your ex-boyfriend's best friend. That's a reason, right? The reason they aren't together is because they don't know how to talk. That's frustrating. On top of that, I think that the characters are kind of unlikable. And I get maybe that's like your thing, but I think Magnolia is kind of unlikable. I don't understand why you would get 20 tattoos dedicated to her. 22 tattoos? I don't fucking remember the exact number because do I care? No. Sally Rooney fans. This is your stuff right here. You know, normal people. It's like rich normal people. I think like if I were reading this book right now, it'd be 3 stars, right? It's not, I don't hate it. I want you to know right now that I don't hate this book. However, I am a bit worried because I'm 200 pages in and we've already had so many micro conflicts that I'm wondering how this book could possibly go on, and I'm wondering if it has any central plot. I'm guessing that it won't, and that's going to frustrate me personally. I am fine with a will they, won't they thing, whatever. What is carrying these characters forward? We do have some progression in the fact that Magnolia has like started seriously, not seriously dating, seriously fake dating a guy, but I don't see that being long-lived. I mean, is she gonna like fall for him and that's gonna be the conflict? Is she gonna be with this new guy or someone else? Okay. I was gonna say I have powerful fingers, but that just sounds gross. I just flipped to about this part. You know, this is the end of the book. I flipped to right here, and my prediction, I believe, is true. I am gonna keep reading, I guess. I'll update you when something happens. So, God knows when that will be. I am more than halfway through. this godforsaken book. Things have happened. Not much that is like super interesting to me, but things have happened, right? So we've had a little bit of a plot twist I didn't personally see coming with family members of Magnolia. I don't want to get into the details because like it's a spoiler or whatever, so I'm not going to. And then we've had repeated betrayals by BJ. That's something else, I guess. I don't know, y'all. This is just like, the more I read, the more that the words feel so empty to me, right? Attempts are made to make us really care for the characters and to make us feel things. I've compared this to Sally Rooney and Sally Rooney's Normal People, I'm pretty sure. I stand by that. I think like there are definitely some similarities, but I think honestly, even though I didn't like that book and I feel like it needed quotation marks, that book elicited emotion and feeling from me because the way that it was written was subtle. The betrayals and the things that happened, I think they were different enough every time to get you to think and kind of wonder who was in the wrong, right? Because they like do things to each other or do things without considering the other person, and it's interesting. The issue that I have with this book is that the betrayals are not interesting. The things that they do are patterns, right? BJ continuously cheats on Magnolia. Magnolia ends up dating different people over and over again, not sleeping with them, but dating them, which upsets BJ. So they just have this endless cycle of hurting each other just to hurt each other. It's never new, it's never interesting, and even if she ends up falling for the guy that she's dating right now, Tom, it's not going to feel interesting and fresh. It's not going to feel like something nuanced and interesting that I want to read about. As much as this book is stuffed with scenes of internal dialogue of the characters talking about how he's the only one that can hurt me and he's the only one that can really attach himself to my emotions. Like, I don't feel anything reading this. I'm like, am I just soulless? Like, is it just me misreading this book? And I don't think it's that because again, I've read books like this before that have impacted me, that have, you know, made me think like, wow, like this is sad. Even watching the Normal People show, which I actually think is better than the book, that one, heartbreaking, you know, this doesn't feel heartbreaking. This is just like, okay, rich people drama. And I think if you're in the mood for this kind of book, it will satisfy you. I just think that this is not normally the kind of thing I pick because again, there's not really any stakes here and there's no basis for the separation. This was never going to work for me. I don't know. I was hoping that it would turn itself around. It just hasn't. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to finish this book and I will get back to you. But so far, I'm not loving it. I already said this is the first book that I'm reading for this video, and I already knew that Rachel and I have dissimilar tastes. I know that she likes Sally Rooney. It makes sense that she would like this book. This is just not for me, and that's okay. I'm gonna finish it. I already know that future me is gonna be really annoyed with myself for not going upstairs and retrieving my copy of Magnolia Parks. Who wants to edit in a book cover when you own the book? Not me. I ended up giving this book 2 stars. I really didn't enjoy it. The ending was, I was gonna say atrocious. That seems a bit extreme. It was predictable. It was nothing that I personally enjoyed. And I feel like my overall like feeling about this book, like my overall thoughts are that it is, I'm not gonna say overrated, but I feel like this book is a lot of fluff and no substance. I wanted there to be more Sally Rooney poignant moments. I wanted there to be more of a question about which characters you would like and support. And I'm sorry, I didn't really like or support any of the characters in this book. I mean, obviously I feel bad for Magnolia, but she is kind of irritating. And BJ, like, I'm sorry, he didn't have this like gray morality thing going on. He was just stupid and made poor decisions and I just like couldn't root for him. I definitely understand why Rachel enjoys this one because again, I think if you like Sally Rooney, but you want something maybe a little bit more, dare I say, dumbed down, but with more like current day language usage. And I don't know, if you just want more of a Gossip Girl feel, you want Sally Rooney vibes, this is your book, right? Like, this will suit you and suit your needs, and I understand why Rachel likes this book. I don't think it's objectively terrible. I definitely think that the writing could work for some people. It just wasn't deep enough for me. I wanted the writing to evoke emotion like A Dowry of Blood did. That one really used this kind of more flowery language to make you feel, and in this book I feel like the language didn't really go well what it was trying to accomplish. So anyway, 2 stars. Disappointing. But you know what? I think someone will really enjoy finding my copy in half-price books in a couple of months. So, you know, not too gutted. Let's talk about a book that I'm 50% into, Rebecca. This is also one that I am like sort of having mixed feelings about, right? So this is like a very beloved sort of like romantic suspense, thrillery sort of book about our narrator who doesn't have a name. She's unnamed. She is the second wife of Mr. Maxim de Winter, and she is having to fill some pretty big shoes because her husband's first wife was a force, and everyone really, really loved Rebecca. As the story goes on, we find out that like every character in Maxim's life and in our narrator's life has sort of like a complicated history and past with Rebecca, and so it makes our narrator want to find out like like what actually happened to her, what were the circumstances surrounding her death. It's not really a whodunit, I guess. I feel like we all kind of know when you start reading the book whodunit. It's more so about the journey to get there and kind of the like chilling feeling of it. And I will say, I am appreciating the way the story is written, again, with the flowery language. I feel like Rachel, I mean, I could be wrong here, could just be coincidence, but I feel like Rachel, you like things that have strong writing, right? This book definitely has strong writing. I feel like the language usage is really evoking a sense of place. I feel like I definitely know where I am, and I feel attached to Manderley for sure. And at the very beginning of the story, I was feeling very sympathetic to our heroine, who is kind of plucked out of a sort of random set of circumstances into this really luxurious lifestyle. I think where I'm sort of struggling is that at the beginning of this book, I was really rooting for our heroine, and I was really interested to see her, you know, sort of like unravel the mystery surrounding Manderley and Rebecca. The more time goes on, the more irritating and naive she is. And I'm assuming that's probably part of the point of the story, correct? I'm assuming that our heroine is going to get like broken down even more emotionally and mentally as the story goes on, and that will be part of what makes this interesting because it's told from her point of view, and I think it would make for a more interesting story for her to just like go down this rabbit hole and have her brain be a little bit fucked up. But I'm also kind of like bored, I guess, at this like 50% mark. I would say from like the 25 to the 50% mark, not a whole lot is happening. We definitely get like creepy feelings from the maid or whatever, like the lady of the house. I don't know, head honcho, head lady in charge. We're getting weird vibes from her, and she's definitely a big Rebecca fan, so she's not a big fan of our narrator, and so she is definitely giving good creepy vibes. Like, I'm appreciating that, but other than that, there's not a whole lot like kind of leading the story forward. We've had like one sort of outburst, I guess you could say, by Maxim. No, I was expecting more creepiness, I suppose. And I guess I was expecting, yeah, more of a whodunit sort of situation. Even though like going into this, I feel like I kind of knew who did it. I like the parts of the story, but I'm not really sure that I like the sum of the story. And I guess we'll see from this 50% mark on how things kind of start unraveling and how that is told, and whether or not that's something that really sticks with me. But like right now, this is kind of feeling like a 2 or 3 star read for me. I would say maybe like a 3 star. Like, it's certainly not bad. Again, I really like the writing, but our narrator's really irritating, and I don't feel like much is happening. So those are my thoughts and feelings. All right, I have good news and bad news. Let's do the good news first. I finished Rebecca last night, and this one really turned itself around. It's really challenging to get into without spoiling anything, but I feel like this one for me is more of like a 3.5, 4 star, which is surprising because I was really like not vibing with it from like that 25 to 50% mark. Then from the 50% mark on, things really changed, and honestly, all I have to say is good for her. I feel like this is the origin almost of like the good for her mystery thriller, and I can really appreciate that. I feel like I know the origin story now. Maybe there are other ones obviously that were done before this, I'm sure there are, but this one I really enjoyed listening to. I really enjoyed reading. It was a fun experience, and I feel like I understand why this book has held up so well over time. There's so much to explore with this one in terms of the characters and how they interact with each other, and also just their character motivations. Getting to know Maxim a little bit more, getting to know our heroine more, getting to know Rebecca more as the story went on. It was really immaculate, and I had a really good time with it, which is good because I do have it somewhere on my shelves here, and I won't be getting rid of it. So I guess that is good news. Like, it was a fun time, and I can definitely understand why Rachel, or really anyone, would enjoy the story. I feel like, again, if you are someone who likes a good for her sort of story, I think you would enjoy this. I think if you are someone who, you know, likes classics, this is definitely one to give a try because it doesn't feel boring and dry. I feel like this one instantly sucked me in, and again, the way that the book is written is so beautiful that it really keeps your attention the entire time and really like sinks you into this place of, okay, I'm kind of scared, I kind of want to know what happens, even though the actual subject matter isn't that scary. It's the way the book is written that kind of like gives it that atmosphere. So I had a good time with this one. I definitely consider this one a win. I feel like I would not hesitate to pick up more like mystery thriller-ish kind of books on Rachel's recommendation, so glad I picked this one up. Now for the bad news. I am about 25% into The Song of the Marked, and I am not DNFing it, actually. I am really enjoying this book, but I won't lie, I am dealing with some rather challenging things in my personal life, and instead of drawing this vlog out longer and longer and like attempting to finish this book later on, I'd rather just kind of like leave it where it is now and be able to pick up this book later on whenever I am feeling up to it. I hate to be vague, so I won't like linger on this, but I guess I can kind of tell you what this book is about and tell you why I actually am really enjoying this one. So this one is about our main character Cass, and at the beginning of the story we find out that she is someone who has a few different hidden identities abilities, kind of like Miss Selena Sardathian in Throne of Glass. So I can definitely see the similarities there already. She also has like friends around her at the very beginning of the story as she is fighting these forces that she didn't expect to fight. I don't want to spoil things, so I'm gonna like be kind of general, I guess you could say, with my plot summary so far. We find out that she has an employer and that she is asked to do different jobs for this person or these people. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, like who she's doing jobs for, but after she leaves this one job kind of unsettled at the events that have occurred, she comes across this guy in an inn, and she is bet by one of her friends that she cannot take something from this guy. And so in doing so, in trying to like obtain, I think it's like a bracelet or something from this man, she ends up getting arrested by him and taken, and she is going to be taken, I want to say before like the emperor or something, like grand ruler of this particular country, realm, whatever. And she's on the road with this guy and she's like trying to escape. They have kind of this playful banter relationship. It does kind of remind me, the opening for sure, of From Blood and Ash, and I have to say that right off the bat this one feels much better done. I think part of it's the writing, and part of it is that our heroine is better developed and a lot less naive than, is it Penelope in From Blood and Ash. I'm liking the story, and again, it's one that I want to take my time with, and I want to be able to like really sit there and like get invested in it. I'm not super in the mood for this story right now. Like I picked it up instantly and was interested. I think I'm like sort of not in the mood for it, and also my attention is just elsewhere in my personal life, so I don't want to give this book like half-assed attention, and I feel like it deserves more than that, if that makes sense. Which I feel like is sort of a lackluster way to end a video, and I apologize for that. However, I feel like I've learned some very important things in this here video, and I feel like I now know that I think Rachel and I have fairly similar taste in books, and I feel like I know now what books that she recommends that will work for me versus won't work for me. So let's go ahead and run through them. First up, we have Yolk by Mary H.K. Choi. I'm not super into YA contemporaries typically, but this one definitely took me by surprise, and I do feel like I learned something new and or gained different perspective on family and what family means, so I'm really glad that I picked this one up, even again if this is not something that I would have normally picked up on my own. Next up, we have A Dowry of Blood. This is the book that I definitely enjoyed the most out of the ones that I read for this video. I gave it 4 stars, and I feel like even if you don't have context for Dracula, you would really potentially enjoy the story. The writing is just so lush, and I just love that this is a polyamorous queer story. Pick it up. Pick it up. So we have Magnolia Parks, which is kind of the one resounding dud of this video. I knew that this book would either be a love or a hate for me. Unfortunately, it is a hate. However, I understand how Rachel could enjoy this book. It definitely, again, has that like writing. I feel like all of the books really in this video, maybe besides the last one, have really intensely good and interesting writing. This one, maybe not my kind of writing, but I can appreciate like what it did. Story, unfortunately, just like wasn't for me, but that's fine. It's okay to have a dud. Next up, we have Rebecca, which was one, again, that kind of took me by surprise. I went into it kind of enjoying it, then it went downhill, and then it went steadily back up the hill because I ended up giving this book like 3.5 stars because it's a good time. And then lastly, we have The Song of the Marked. This, again, is one that I am intending on finishing at a later date. However, I feel like, say, with some degree of certainty, that this is better than From Blood and Ash. And if you're looking for a good romantic fantasy, you should pick this one up. I mean, I don't want to say that for sure because maybe something wild happens in the last part of this book, but I don't think that's the case. And I feel pretty confident in recommending this one. So overall, I'm really happy with how this taste test turned out. I really liked getting to read Rachel's favorites. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to Rachel. I'll leave a link to her channel down in the description down below. If you like my videos, I think you're going to actually love her videos. She's amazing. So thanks so much for watching this video. I love y'all so much, and until next time.